Hi, and welcome to another episode of Alma and Kevin. Welcome, everyone. We're very excited to see you here today. Today, we wanted to talk to you about empathy and wondering if has anyone ever accused you of being not empathetic to their situation, or have you been in a situation where somebody's actually questioned whether or not you have empathy for them?
Mhm.
If so, always let us know in the comments. But today, that's what our conversation is going to be about. So I'm going to start with asking Emma, what is your definition of empathy?
Empathy is very different from sympathy, Kevin. Empathy, when you're empathetic towards somebody else's situation, is basically being able to see from their eyes, hear from their ears, and feel from their heart. To allow yourself to be empathetic, you're going to have to go to a part of you and connect with a part of you that can feel what the other person is feeling. Empathy also drives and fuels connection, whereas sympathy creates often a disconnect. So, for example, oh, I lost my job today. Oh, at least you've got a house, you know, empathy. Or oh, my husband left. Well, at least you've got kids.
Yeah.
Empathy isn't off, and sometimes we're so in a rush to make the person feel better that isn't
Hmm.
empathetic. Sometimes the most empathetic thing we can do is to say, I really don't know what to say, but I'm so glad you told me. That sucks. That's awful.
Hmm.
And
So it's
just
kind of like, sorry,
and
it's kind
just
of like putting yourself in their shoes, right?
yeah, just put yourself in another
Okay.
person's shoes and sit with the discomfort that comes up and just be okay with
Yeah.
it. Empathy also allows you to just enter into their world and maybe imagine like your presence is enough to illuminate their situation. It's not about saying anything
Hmm.
clever. It's not about having a solution to the problem. It's just about allowing that person to not feel alone and just to say, let's breathe through it. Let's look at it together. And I'm here. You don't have to have
That's good.
just to be empathetic with somebody. It's just to
Yeah.
be around and to listen. It's a lot about listening. It's a lot
Hmm.
about not having any judgment and just being there to witness what they're witnessing and feel what they're feeling. And it's really hard. It's not always easy to be empathetic because
No,
we're
I agree.
so much more naturally genetically geared to judge somebody's situation based
Hmm.
on our own knowledge, wisdom, values, ideologies. And that's a mistake. You know, that's what causes a lot of disconnect in the world. But it's just to be able to look at somebody else's reality and
Hmm.
offer acceptance. Hmm.
So with that, what it's obviously something that we need to have, and you know, how do you go about developing empathy? Like, is that something you teach your children, do you think? Or is that something they learn on their own? Or is it something through experience? Like, what's your opinion on that?
I think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
Nature, by nature of the fact that we're human beings, there is parts of our DNA that we're naturally empathetic to some degree. And then there's
Hmm.
a nurturing side of us, like you and me as life coaches, where we go out of our way to intentionally master the skill of being empathetic because we recognize that it's really important for connection.
Hmm.
It's really important as a way of helping somebody to find their own solutions. And it's really important for growth and so many things. There are so many values in being empathetic. So we naturally have part of it, and the other part that's missing, we have to, like any other skill set, we have to go after it and master um, the ability to be more empathetic and to support others in a deeper, more meaningful connection way. For
How do
example,
you
in a
think somebody?
relationship, in a business relationship or in a romantic relationship, any kind of relationship, or even mothering,
Hmm.
my 11-year-old daughter will come to school, oh, mommy, something really terrible happened today. Obviously, in my adult years, it's not terrible, but I have to be able to come down to her level and say, was it? And let her talk
Right.
it out and see it from her eyes. Oh, I can imagine that was really difficult for you based on where she's coming from. Same thing
Right.
in a business setting. Um, as a leader, it's very easy to write leadership manifesto and best practices and principles for staff to execute. But there might come a time where an individual might be struggling with something and they will paint their picture of reality for you. And it's up to the leader to look at it and
Mm-hmm.
offer empathy. But the only way the leader can offer empathy is to access it through a part of them that they can build connection to be able to help that person find a solution, not a solution outside the box, but a solution in the box with that person based on their reality and help them to navigate out.
That's interesting. It's also interesting, like in coaching, for example, when like that's a skill I think that's necessary.
Mm.
Would you agree with that? Like if you are coaching someone, you're really learning the skill of listening to them and understanding their situation and putting, like, for example, in a very simple example, I guess, would be, so if you're dealing with a woman who is a single mother and has four children, and she's balancing work and life, and your expectations as a coach to give her some accountability measures, is doing this, this, and this, and then she comes back to you and says, like, I've attempted to do this, but because of my situation, I'm balancing work and life, and you know, as a non-empathetic person, you would say, like, that's unfortunate, but these are the things that I gave you, and I expect them to be done. That's what this program's all about. Or you could say, yeah, wow, I can't imagine. Like, I would never. I have a hard time balancing one kid, never mind four. I also have a spouse, never mind alone. And putting yourself in their shoes. That would be, the proper way to go about doing it, and developing in that. And that is an example of how you're going to develop a relationship with another individual, so that in developing that relationship you acquire a comfort level, their trust, and their belief that you understand their situation, right? So that would make sense that that's a really important thing to have with your coaching.
100%, Kevin. If you imagine coaching as archaeologists, we go digging for whatever we found in the earth, and whatever we find, we don't judge it, right? Well, this is how they used to have spoons or saucepans, or this is what human
Right.
parts look like. This is a feet, there's a bone. It is just picking up pieces and trying to understand what life looked like for that person. And that's exactly what coaching is. We're all human beings having, we're all spiritual beings having a human experience, but that human experience can be completely different. If you and I were siblings brought up by the same parents, living in the same household, our reality also could be very different by virtue of the fact that
Mm-hmm.
first child, second child, male child, female child, reality looks like something completely different for everybody. So empathy is the gateway to understand what that human is experiencing in any given time. And if we remove judgment, if we remove our own perception and just literally enter somebody's world and try to understand what their unique challenges, weaknesses, strengths, values are, we're able to support them better based on the
Mm-hmm.
tools that they have in their lives, as opposed to, if I were you, I will do it this way, I'll do that way.
Yeah.
You're not that person. I'm not
How
a
many times you hear that?
single mother with
If
four
I were
kids.
you.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
whatever I
exactly.
imagine, if I were you and I could imagine being you, it's also a fake assumption because you don't know until you are really truly in their shoes. So you have to allow yourself to literally walk a few steps in their shoes to see what they're carrying and how heavy those steps are before
Exactly.
we can offer the solution that's tailor-made, because coaching is also about, you know, it's not one size fits all, it's tailor-made to
No,
suit
absolutely.
the person in front of you. And the only way to design something that's going to be truly useful is to understand that person's lifestyle, their thoughts, their reality.
I think that's important. That's an important fact because I think a lot of people, and I know, you know, in my experience of taking on new clients and things like that, I'm always interested in what these people are asking about, what I can do for them as a coach. And I find sometimes it's interesting that that issue never comes up, that, that they don't ask a question that would kind of indicate that you have the ability to sense empathy or have empathy for their situation. I find it interesting that that's not a top priority for people who are looking for a coach, because I would put that as one of my top priorities, that you are able to build a relationship with me because you understand what my situation is, right? And what I'm all about. I have a couple of questions for you, sort of just playing the devil's advocate sort of thing. So have you ever had somebody say to you, you have no empathy?
I can't recall anybody ever say that to me, but I have had people say,
Really?
you just don't understand what it's like for me.
Okay. So that, I guess in an off
So
side
that's,
road kind of way, that might be the
yes,
same thing.
yes.
But so what kind of a situation would that have been?
Maybe in a situation where I think I was offering parental advice. I had a friend
Okay.
who had a very strong-willed toddler. And
Mm,
based on my reality of how I've been mothering, or the children that I have, let's say, I believed if you follow a particular science or method or strategy, that's going to work for
right.
your child. And they were very resistant and resilient towards it because they felt I was giving advice that's based on what's worked for me, but it's not going to work for them. So
Yeah.
yeah, there was a disconnect rather than, building a connection. Perhaps I was sympathetic. Oh, I'm sorry you're not getting much sleep at night, you know.
Hmm.
At, have you tried this? But that's not what the person
Yeah.
can understand. They want you to be empathetic to their reality, build the connection first. And when you can truly see and feel and hear life with their unique struggle, then maybe my advice would be different. But I guess when you
Hmm.
know better, you do better. And it was before I knew better. I just off dished out
Yeah.
advice that's working for me, but being truly empathetic to her skills and abilities. Yeah.
It's hard with children though, because there's so many different scenarios, right? Like I know my kids were quite difficult, like especially when my youngest one was very young, really challenging. And I think I probably read, every book on child psychology and everything that we're supposed to do, right? And but you work through it and you deal with it stuff. And then I remember coming upon a friend of mine who had kind of a similar experience with their child. And then I was making some suggestions, right? And they said, well, I'm reading a book, and I think it was called The Difficult Child. I think that was the title of it, right? And I started laughing because I had read that book like 10 times, thinking I must have missed something. And, but I was just laughing because I don't think they weren't even open to suggestions or things like that, right? So, but on the issue of empathy again, have you ever found yourself in a position where you felt like you couldn't actually be empathetic for a situation or for someone? And what would you do if that's the case?
If I couldn't be empathetic with the person,
Or have you, or if not that you couldn't, or maybe you just felt like you just don't have empathy for that person. Like, what would be a situation like that for you?
I think by all means there must be some occasion in my life where I couldn't connect, because empathy is about connection. That would happen if I couldn't connect with part of me that has
Yeah.
lived that reality or something similar, right? For example, maybe there's a part of me that won't find the right empathy for someone that's doing something that I believe is self-inflicted, is a choice, right? Empathy
Okay.
is a choice. I have to choose to be empathetic. So if there's a
Yeah.
part of me that's failing to choose to be empathetic towards something, there must be a block inside of me somewhere that isn't leaning towards being empathetic to that person.
That
So
was kind of the question, actually. Yeah. That, like, is there something that would stop you from wanting to be empathetic to a situation? Sort of like,
yeah,
I remember one time with you, um, I forgot to record, and you showed zero empathy to me in terms of understanding my situation.
Kevin, is this
So
the right
I just
platform
wanted,
to air our dirty laundry?
I couldn't resist.
Okay,
Put a
I'll
little
give you an
light in that.
example of not a time that I can envision I won't be empathetic, Kevin.
Yes.
I feel like I'm an empathetic human, and in my professional world, I can imagine all kinds of scenario that I would be empathetic. But as a mama bear, if somebody hurts your
Mm,
child, I don't know. Like sometimes there are women who end up starting kind of um, a campaign against drink driving because somebody took their child and then they
yeah.
they forgave the person. I don't know if I'm in that situation, I will react in that way, Kevin.
That's understandable. I get that. That's along the same lines. Like, if you have a child who's committed a murder or something like that, like, how do you show empathy to that child
If
any
it's your
longer?
child, I
Or
think you can do it. But
right?
if somebody harmed your child, it's the other way. That takes
Yeah,
a
it's
level of
different.
power. That takes
Hmm.
a level of power. Like, for example, our good friend Rosie Rose, her father was murdered by
Hmm.
someone who was in jail. And she tells the
Really?
story of while she didn't forgive him, there were two people serving a sentence, the man in
Yeah.
jail and her out of jail. So she found empathy within herself to arrange to meet him and even campaign for him to be freed.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
that's
You know,
amazing. That inspires
it
me.
would be, yeah, yeah, exactly, right? So there are things like that that yeah, I think it's very important in, obviously, like, the career that we have as coaches. I think it's incredibly important. I think it's very important as a parent to have that ability to empathize with your children, especially, given, like, the very basic example that you did on in terms of, like, what your child was going through one day, to be able to put yourself, like, the key is to be able to put yourself in someone's situation and understand what they're going through as they are, not as you are with your capabilities and your, whatever status you have. I think the key is to be able to see through someone else's eyes exactly what they're going through. And I think that is, like, that is the ultimate sign of empathy and ability to understand others and to make it, you know, I think in the world itself, it's lacking in
Mm.
many cases, right? And people are suffering because of it, and people do things because of it, and they don't see it. I don't think enough people take the time to realize or look or put the value into empathy that should be there,
Mm.
that's necessary to have that kind of balance in your life and that kind of ability and that kind of opportunity to develop the relationships that you could have because you're properly displaying, your ability to be empathetic to other people.
Uh,
That's my thought on it.
that's so good. And I also believe that empathy is a skill set that we should all be striving for. Whatever level of
Yeah.
empathy that I've got within myself now, I'm always looking for the next level. And the way I'm doing that is to see every human in their child version. Like
Hmm.
imagine a 5-year-old version of Kevin, because then you're able to see the innocence in all of us. We're all vulnerable. We're all
Yeah.
capable of doing amazing things. We're all capable of doing terrible things when you remove judgment from it
Hmm.
and try to understand what makes you tick, what makes me tick,
Yeah.
based
Yeah.
on our upbringing, our nurturing, our life experiences, exposure. It's very, very easy to say that's not me. I won't do that, or believe believe also that what we believe to be true is the best way, right?
Hmm.
I
I think it's,
was,
go ahead, sorry.
I was brought up by parents who really believe in whatever they know, which is great. It's a
Hmm.
great skill. It's a great ability to own and to really truly believe in yourself. But I always feel like there's something more to learn when we open our hearts to
Hmm.
receive wisdom and knowledge, not through the head, but through the heart. So empathy also makes you allow your heart to be more open.
Yeah,
And it's way
yeah, for
better
sure.
for resilience, creativity,
Yeah.
strength. Strength comes from the heart and not really the head. So,
I, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's our responsibility, especially as parents, to ensure that your children are learning what empathy is and what it means. I think it's very important. Um, and I think just as fellow human beings, when an opportunity is available to you to show that
mm,
and to express that and learn that, I think we should always jump on that opportunity to do so. I think it's incredibly important.
has there been a time in your life that you could have shown empathy, but you didn't, and then you regretted it afterwards?
Hmm. Um, Geez, I don't know. I'm sure there was when, at some point. Um, but I think it was, I'm trying to think exactly. I guess, yes. Actually, now that I think about it, I think, yes, there was, I think I would say with my sister, and a situation that she put herself in. And I don't think I was as empathetic as I could have been at the time,
Mm,
right? I was a lot younger as well. Um, and probably a little bit judgmental, you
mm,
know? So yes, I think, you know, I thinking back, probably could have dealt with that a little bit better,
mm.
shown a little bit more empathy to her when she was in need of support, you know. Um, so yes, yeah, and I think I would say that probably everybody has some kind of experience, you know, with.
Absolutely. So now that you know and can look back and think, based on that time, I did the best that I knew. But now that you've got basically empathy, also comes down to having more
Mhm.
skill sets to be able to
Yeah.
look at another person's perspective without judgment. What would what would you say to somebody who's watching and has feelings of regret that they weren't empathetic? Would you go back to address the situation, offer apology, speak about it, or would you just learn from it and move on?
Well, I think it's always important to learn from your mistake, right? Like that's key. I don't think you can change the past. Like I don't know what the benefit of going back and digging it up again would be for anyone, to be
Oh, for
honest with you.
example, the situation with your sister, maybe she still holds that in her. Maybe she
Hmm.
still remembers that. So it's I don't know.
Okay, so if you
Is
if
it ever
that's
too
if
late to
that's
be empathetic when you weren't? Maybe that's the question.
okay. Um, no, I don't think so. I think you can go back and, say, I could have responded. I think I did, through, it was such a long time ago. I'm pretty sure it's come up once or twice in our lives since then, whenever she's angry. But no, I think you can go back, but I don't think it's always necessary to go back because I don't think, you can't, it doesn't always go the way you think it's going to go when you go back, right? And I think, I'm a big believer in, the past is the past and you can't change it. And even if you go back and apologize for something that you did, you still did it. And the person's going to think that way. I think it's just a matter of proving that you have changed and become a better person and a more understanding person. And then they can see that through your actions today, I think is enough to make them understand that you have, you know, kind of corrected yourself and done the right thing and have learned from your mistakes and things like that. I think that's very important. So it's all part of my belief that, living in the present, not dwelling on the past because you can't change it. Like you can correct things and you can, do better and you can make up for things. Like, if you felt like you did something to somebody and you can change their life now by doing something to make up for it, then do it, right?
Mm.
But don't go and say like, because I did this to you, I'm going to do this for you now. Just do it. Like show them that you can just correct it, right? Like out of nowhere. Don't expect any kind of accolades or praise. Like you should do it out of the goodness of your heart and the fact that you've learned from your mistakes and that you want to make right what you did wrong, right? Without a big show and expression of you're expecting gratitude and all that. You'll probably get it if you don't make a big deal out of it, but it's something that if you have the ability to do it, you should do it. And if you don't, you can't dwell on it because you've changed. You've changed, and you can prove to that person that you've changed if you're still in contact with them to make it happen. But yeah, I think you have to gauge the situation, right?
Mm.
So, I mean, how many friends do you have that? Well, from what we've spoken of before, you have all your friends. But a lot of people have people in their lives that come and go, and sometimes those people are no longer in your lives anyway. If there's something, if you really wanted to make a difference and you saw that they were doing something you could contribute to their benefit, then do it, right? But if you can't, you can't for whatever number of reasons, right? But it's up to you it's what makes you feel resolved of the situation, right? Like, did you do the best you could do afterwards to do better, right? Did you learn from it? Did you do better because of it? Have you improved it? Have you made other people's lives better? That kind of stuff, right? I think it's important.
Well, that's beautifully said. I like that.
Yeah.
Correction going forward, no need to go back. So that's really good.
Yeah.
And that leads to the next part that I wanted to talk about with you, which is self-empathy. Do you take
Mm.
time to empathize with yourself? And if you do, what daily practices or rituals, or what does that look like? How do you show empathy to yourself?
Actually, just today I was reading a book, or yesterday I was reading a book, and I got through the next chapter of it, and part of it was actually just understanding what you actually have accomplished and understand what you've done with your life and things like that. And I think quite often people are too hard on themselves, and they feel that they owe an explanation to everybody for everything that they do. And I just made a post of this morning, but
I saw
you
that.
don't like you don't owe anybody anything. Like you're
Mm,
you're living your life and you're doing the best that you can do, and you have to do what you feel is necessary to get where you want to go. And again, I think people sometimes give up too soon for lack of results. They don't feel they're getting the results they need to keep moving forward when it's that point that it's probably teetering on the biggest difference in your life. Two, that they listen to what other people say and make a choice dependent on that, which I think is wrong.
mm,
Um, listen to somebody's advice and everything, but you still have to do what, don't change your course of action because of someone else. If you don't feel it, if you feel like if you're 100% in, then yeah. But if you don't, then don't, like, why are you doing that? Why are you changing for someone else? You shouldn't. And so for me, I look at my situation and I look at what I've experienced in my life, like being out of the house so young, difficult situations, a little bit of abuse here and there, heart surgery, like all of those things, and and quite often I'll say like, what, cut yourself some slack, Kevin, like take it easy. You're moving forward. You're always moving forward. As long as you're not going backwards, as long as you're not dwelling on things that you can't change, then you're good, right? So for me, that's kind of my self empathy in terms of giving myself credit for what I've done and what I've accomplished, and moving forward, and not being too hard on myself, and looking at my situation and giving myself a realistic view of where I'm at and what I can accomplish, right? And understanding that I can't do 100% everything I want to do all at once, right?
yeah.
Like what's that movie? Everything All at Once Now or whatever. What was that movie? I can't remember.
Who's in it?
I think it was called Everything All at Once or
Who's in it?
something.
I don't know that movie.
Jamie Lee Curtis, um, and I don't know actually. I'm horrible with stuff like that. I shouldn't even bring that up because I have no idea what the title is. I don't know who was in it, but I expect everybody to understand what I'm
But you
talking
remember
about.
the movie, every bit about it.
I didn't, yeah, like I didn't really get the whole movie, but it won a lot of awards. So there's that. Um, anyway, so
Okay.
that's what I do for myself.
On my side, I think I'm learning to be the most radical of acceptance of myself, all my bits, my
Oh
broken
yeah.
bits. And coaching really helps with that. The fact that any part of us that was, let's say, a past hurt, bad memory, all the bits that we
Mm-hmm.
don't normally want to talk about. Because I'm a coach now today, I see the value in those experiences and its currency. I can
Yeah.
create a connection and show empathy to others in the way that
Yeah.
I might use it as content. I might use it as wisdom. I might pull it out of the bag as, here's me giving you evidence that I see you, I
Mm-hmm.
understand you, I've once been you, I've gone through it, I've grown through it. So empathy is becoming something that is bigger in myself, because all my parts, every part of me is not useless. It's not only
Mm-hmm.
I don't champion coaching because of my championships and where I've been
Yeah.
victorious. It's also in my downside and my falls. So it's easier to literally hold myself and embrace myself and understand that I can bring all parts of me to the next chapters of me, because it's not, all my broken bits are welcome.
Yeah. I get that. I think, that's the thing about coaching is that it's probably the best job I've ever had. I love it because it does, like, you learn every single client that you have, you learn something new about yourself, which is amazing. And then it forces you to acknowledge all of those things that you may have had hidden somewhere in your past, because it's for a number of reasons. One, practice what you preach, right? You can't expect somebody to do something that you've never done or are not willing to do. So it really makes you open up. And I think before you even get started in coaching, you probably have a whole period of time beforehand where you actually do acknowledge all of these things of yourself and realize, and you have to deal with these things yourself, because you can't possibly help someone if you haven't done them yourself,
Mm.
right? It's like you can't help somebody survive, be in a successful business that's 10 times better than what they currently have if you've never experienced that, right? um, you can't help somebody on book knowledge to get the results they're looking for if that's all you have to offer, right? You have to have some personal experience, and that's part of what coaching is about. And the whole concept of coaching is showing somebody how to get somewhere faster and smoother than they would do it on their own, because you've been through it, and that's the whole key, right? So part of, yeah.
For the first time, I'm going to disagree with you, Kevin.
What?
I feel like you can coach
In what?
somebody to achieve greater, more successful business than maybe I have experienced in my reality. I coach clients who have very successful business, but my business hasn't hit the level of, let's say, financial success that they've had as a
I understand that, yeah, like
because
because
I,
of the age of your business and the length of time you've done it, but you have business experience that allows you to show people what you've been through and how it works, right? It's not, what I'm saying is, I can't read a book, like, and study the book and then give that knowledge to somebody else, because they can do the same thing. That's all I'm saying, is that even though your business, if you're not having like a huge amount of financial success yet, you've been in enough businesses to know what the procedure is to show somebody. You've had more experience than that person in terms of what you've experienced yourself, to show them, here's 5 things you can do that tripped me up when I was going through it. So if I tell you these 5 things, you're not going to trip up. You're going to have more experience, right? So I think that was the message I was trying to get across. Not that it was, I wasn't necessarily putting like a dollar value on it. Just to be clear, you know.
okay, I'll let you have that.
Thank you. That was very. Empathetic of you.
Okay, so
So,
how are you going to wrap up, Kev?
well, I loved our conversation, as I always do. Like, I think,
That was a good
spending time with you is
conversation.
always enjoyable.
Yeah.
And, hopefully everybody got a little bit from it because, it's something that is definitely um, something you want
Mm.
and something you can work at and something that you want to teach other people and show. And I think it makes your life a lot better when you go through it, showing those things and developing the relationships that you really want to have, whether it's business, personal, or otherwise. So I think that's very important. So I want to say thank you very much for joining us again today and watch for us again with more information in the future. And Emma, have an amazing day. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, Kevin. Thank you. Bye for now,
Take care.
everybody. Bye.